Hello all and welcome to Shatter Our Souls with Novaria. Today we have a couple minor things to deal with. Number one, this is the last episode that's going to have side quests in it for this particular main portion of the run. Which is fantastic and also kind of sad. I was expecting that this was going to last a little bit longer, but I digress. 20 weeks of punching things in the face as brick is mayhap a little bit of time. Anywho, we're going to start this all off with a couple minor things. Number one, we're going to make a loop around to different areas of Borderlands kind of second half here, and toss in any side quests that are currently completed. Number two, once we're done with that side quest, we are going to go into the Trash Coast, clean up side quests there, New Haven, Old Haven, and clean up side quests there, and then turn around and hopefully make it to the Salt Flats at some point, as we kind of need to take the fight to our dear friend, Baron Flint. With all of that in mind, there's a few things that I would like to touch on as being important. The first and foremost is that once you get to the point of the end game, Borderlands is very clear about the expectations that you should expect going forward. First and foremost, you have to be able to acknowledge the fact that the game as a whole is going to get exponentially faster from here on out. And I don't mean that in a bad news kind of thing, but more so just as an acknowledgement of what's coming. So, from my recollection, there are currently 3 claptraps left in the game to get your boost to your inventory slots. Cool. That's 3 claptraps worth of experience, 3 claptraps worth of stuff. We have maybe 10 side quests left. And then from then on, everything you do ties into the final battle, so to speak. The war between the Vault Hunters and the Crimson Lance. Let's be clear, this game's like 15-ish years old at this point. I think it's a pretty fair thing that most people who are here know what's going on. Anywho, the war with the Crimson Lance brings with it a few interesting tidbits. First and foremost, the focus on bandits as your primary antagonists is going to disappear. And I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. Antagonists are antagonists. They do the thing that they need to do because they need to do it. The bandits are kind of a unique entity as far as I'm concerned. Every single one of them is vying for their little slice of the pie, their piece of heaven and whatnot. But if you look into the lore of what led to Pandora being in the state it's in, you realize that a lot of these bandits that are wanting to make a living on Pandora were brought here by the Dahl Corporation's mining crews, specifically to find the vaults. It's what led to the creation of Old Haven. It's what led to the creation of New Haven, Janestown, Taylortown, Firestone, even Sanctuary are all locations that were created as a direct result of these miners wanting to make a better life in a less than stellar situation. Personally, I think that's a pretty darn good thing to be going for. I like the idea of all of these characters working together in some capacity. Because if they didn't, who would fight for them? So, in that regard, I think that the general populace, the individuals that are the bandits of Pandora, have reason to be. Now, this isn't to say that it's a forever thing. I do believe that at some point or another they do deserve and should, theoretically, be able to make things better for themselves as a general statement. But also, Pandora's only begun fighting with the player. It's only begun showing, hey, by the way, this is what we want to show off. This is who we are. This is what we do. And the spider ants, the skags, the threshers that are introduced into the stalker enemies introduced into are all intended to be a new entity, a new group to fight against. And I don't necessarily think that the wildlife of Borderlands is safe or nice, but I do believe that they all have evolved in a way that they're intending to be able to survive against one another no matter what the stakes at hand may be. Part of this comes from the fact that the Iridian artifacts exist on Pandora. The Iridian artifacts, the flame artifact, the explosive artifacts, corrosive shock artifacts, act and battle alongside the various entities on Pandora, creating the badasses that we see in so much of the game. It allows the flora and fauna, more so fauna, to be able to actually fight on par with the bandits. Is it perfect? No, absolutely not. Is Pandora probably in a lot of trouble? Absolutely. And that's wonderful. But getting at what I was saying earlier, Borderlands 1's endgame is upon us. And there's a few things that I need to be very clear about going forward. Number one, once the endgame starts, it is going to be one section to the next in rapid succession. This isn't me saying, oh yeah, it's going to be, it's going to take 10 minutes and it's done. It's a long run. It is a lot of challenges all strung together in a row. Once Baron Flint falls, that's it. We have Baron Flint, Master McCloud, the War Zone, and the final boss. That's it. That's all that's left of Borderlands 1's overarching narrative. But don't let that slow you down. We do have a couple things coming up that extend upon this original idea. And that's... I beat the DLC without the use, or without dying, for the most part, in the first run of the game. I ended up dying to a couple of the final bosses of the, the Claptrap DLC, and was done. I wasn't doing another 30, 40 hours deathless just to attempt it one more time. It was disheartening, but realistic. The reality is that this run doesn't require me to not die for 15, 30 hours straight. And so, I'm feeling confident in the fact that I may be able to beat most of the DLC without having to worry about weapons or firing bullets, as I haven't had to worry about it in any capacity with the prior, or up to this point. I figured if it was ever going to come up, it was going to come up in the battles against the Mad Mel or the bandits in vehicles, but even then it never became an issue. Oh, speaking of creatures that have taken over a, an artifact, we have the badass Fire Ant Burner, which is pretty much exactly what you'd expect. A spider ant that is also on fire. Anywho, we're just going to clean out these insectoids quickly and figure out where the spider ant, thorax or abdomen? That's the word. The spider ant queen's abdomen went. Once we have that, it's going to be quick, easy, and to the point as we rush off to, hopefully, finish off this region PDQ. Now, the bait and switch is effectively this side quest we're doing right now. The bait and switch is actually kind of funny. it is this... how do I want to word this? There is a bandit camp that is using the abdomen of or using a queen's pheromones to be able to protect themselves from the spider rants directly surrounding their camps. And this is great. I think that is a fantastic use of knowledge and intellect to be able to do what you want to do. But the problem is what happens if you introduce something a little more dangerous to the equation? Well, Queen Tarantella here is exactly that. An entity of incredible power that has did have one goal, which was to protect itself and its hive. If it loses the hive and falls, its pheromones will keep its hive together to some extent during the duration of the time that it's gone, until a new queen can come and take the mantle. This, however, does not account for the fact that there are rival colonies. And there is, in fact, another queen, right close by, actually, that is going to be the butt of jokes today. Because that queen and its colony is going to fight back against the banditos because of the pheromones of Queen Tarantella. Which I think makes sense. It's quick to the point, rather loosely set up. And I think that makes for a rather interesting setup. Anywho, I've been talking a little bit about deathless runs and speed runs in some capacity in the past. There's a couple things that I want to bring out. The first and foremost is it possible to beat the game using only certain tools? Well, absolutely. There's nothing necessarily stopping the player from beating the game in less than consistent ways. Each of the various weapon types come out and they're like, yeah, okay, this works with this works with this, no big deal. Repeaters work for everybody. Revolvers and snipers work best in the hands of Mordecai. Shotguns are the primary weapon of Brick, who is the tank. He is supposed to be close range and works well with his raw defensive might in a group of 4. But his real strength lies in explosive damage. And this is kind of what we have to be honest about here is he ironically has 2 weapons that work best with him, but those would be his giant turkeys he has on the end of his arm, and also explosive weapons like launchers, which is great. And could you beat the game using only launchers? Possibly. I don't think it would be very reasonable, but I think it would be possible. To do it as a deathless run using only launchers? That's a level of dedication that I definitely do not have. Okay, we have 33 slots. Doing great. So, at this point, claptraps that we have remaining include the one in Baron Flint's hideaway. There's one in Old Haven. And there's one in, I believe it's called the Crimson Fastness. Regardless, that leaves 3 claptraps left. I know I said 3 earlier. I'm just realizing that I oopsied. So, yeah. Great, right? All good. Everything is sorted out and ready to rumble. We're gonna take a left here and deal with the Queen Abdomen problem. And then we're gonna cash in and head towards Old Haven. Now, if I were to rank each type of weapon in terms of the likelihood of being successful in beating the entire game as a single weapon type run, the first thing we have to acknowledge is when do you receive these weapons? In Borderlands 1, there are 3 kind of metrics we gotta work with here. The first is it an early game weapon type? Now, early game weapon types include SMGs, assault rifles, shotguns, and snipers. These are the 4 basics that are intended to showcase, hey, by the way, this is kind of what you're looking at. Repeater pistols also fall into that as being part of the overall set of tools that you're expected to have. Once you beat I believe after you beat Roid Rage Psycho in Sledge's safe house, you have access to a new set of weapons. Typically, I would call these revolvers. Once you get access to revolvers, things open up a fair bit. But revolvers and rocket launchers, I believe, are unlocked at that point in time. They're not spectacular, but they're not anything to scoff at either. Next up, you end up getting the real endgame weapons, the ones that are supposed to be the weird ones. Now, I'm going to call these the Iridian weapons, and I might be missing something, let's be real, but the Iridian weapons, I have never found any earlier than meeting Patricia Tannis. Meaning that in order to do a run with nothing but Iridian-style weaponry, you would have to run from or through Firestone, all of the Dull Headland, and part of the Rust Commons East to be able to even unlock or get your first attempt at it. And there's no guarantee you're getting a good one either. You could end up with the 10110, whatever it's called, the rocket launcher, which is an Iridian-style rocket launcher that does pretty decently overall. The second being the Iridian Lightning, which is a infinite ammunition sniper rifle that always has a shock element applied to it. Great for shields. Iridian weapons also fall into assault rifle varieties, and to a lesser extent, you could get a SMG variety, but it feels like they're gonna break. At no point in time do any of the Iridian weapons really outclass their more consistent and ammo-driven counterparts. Now, I had mentioned that this was a run where there was no ammunition made or used, and technically, if I were to use Iridian weapons, that would follow suit with my expectations, because they're not bullets. But I feel like breaking that and doing it in that way would break the spirit of the run. This is all about cannons, at least the ones attached to either side of Brick's torso here. So, I kinda don't want to go that route and just say, oh well. Anyways, we're now level 33, 5 levels above the Gatling turret that at one point could pretty well one-shot us. Which kinda gives the idea of how much the players gain from playing the game normally, as well as how much the game pushes you to use various abilities and side quests properly. Because if it were me, if I didn't have to do 17 million side quests, it would be nice to just rush in and beat everything over the head with a brick. But reality is that's not something that's remotely functional for most players. So, rushing from point A to point B, a speedrun style if you will, would require, in some capacity, some level of side questing to be done. Now, for me, if I were to go that route, I would just do the side quests but not hand them in. But that kind of, on the same point, defeats the purpose of doing the side quests. But I have this kind of ha-ha in the back of my mind where I think, you know what would be fun? Going through and collecting absolutely everything the game had to offer, beating every single mission and side quest, And then as soon as reaching level 69 or whatever, cash it all in New Game Plus, in the New Game Plus situation, the end game, just to see what kind of ridiculous level scaling these tools would get. The other side of it is, what if we just didn't do any side quests in New Game Plus and attempted to do it that way? Completing every side quest as technically as intended, but later on in the game. What would that look like? Now, unfortunately, there are a couple of side quests that are unattainable after the main mission, so to speak, has ended. And that is once, what's his name? TK Baja falls, you pretty well can't do much of anything. Now, technically, by my understanding, if you don't collect the mission that says, "How's TK doing?" you might still be able to do that. I actually have to double check and test that, because I admit I haven't even looked into that as a possibility. But we'll find that out at a later date. Anywho, with all of that in mind, we're just going to clean out the inventory, because I've got a lot of spare shields and tools here. And we're going to go back, hand in a couple things, and then head to the Salt Flats. I'll admit, we're making pretty good time. The Salt Flats are iffy. They're not necessarily the hardest region out there. In fact, I would argue that they're one of the easier regions to complete. But much like the Dull Headland, you're stuck in a situation where you have to deal with bandit patrols once again. Now, this could go really well or really poorly depending on how you view the situation. If you're one who likes battling the bandit patrols, this is going to go great. You're going to love it. It's going to be a fantastic situation for you. If you're like me and kind of can't do much of anything without the use of kablooies, then you're going to require a little bit more finesse, and this is going to be a bit more of a difficult situation. Now, how difficult this situation becomes is entirely dependent on whether or not this vehicle here is intangible like it was in the Dull Headlands. If it is, we're in for a bad time. If it isn't, we may have something to look forward to. Anyways, let's see what we can get into. Outriders. Yeah, it's gonna be more of the same. Luckily that there's only 4 instead of 8 like last time, but I wish that they would be a little more forgiving in that regard. I know it's possible. I know it's gonna be fine. I just can't help but hope. Baron Flint's castle, or domain, shall we say, is out in the middle of the Salt Flat. It is a absolutely massive mining machine, designed specifically to find the vaults within a reasonable span of time. However, Baron Flint's, I believe he calls it Thor, got stuck in a mud puddle, if you will. It can no longer move. And instead of dismantling it, as I believe he should have, he focused instead on turning it into a base of operations. How do I want to put this? A lookout tower in the middle of the Salt Flats that acts as a warning to all those that might seek to oppose him. And that's honestly kind of a good thing. Because he is effectively doing so much with so little here. Oh, yay! 4 hits, not 15. I think we're doing much better. Oh man, he moved too quickly. So, the bandit patrols are going to be doing a significant amount less to us than they did in the prior battles. Which is great, because it means we don't have to panic about the situation we're in, at least not nearly as badly as we once did. And patrol number 2 defeated. Holy smokes. 11-ish health remaining at the beginning of the re-healing process. We're just going to give this about 10 seconds here. Enough that, it's not on fire. I think that's a pretty safe bet to make. 200. Wow, this thing's health was really low. 250. Okay, we're just smoking now. That's perfect. We can hopefully get rolling. Reality is that the runners are one of those tools that I wish got more attention in the original game. How do I want to word this? It's a tool that is incredibly impressive and was used to great effect during the opening of the game, especially with the piss wash hurdle. But aside from that, it really didn't do much of anything, and you could effectively, once you jump over Piss Wash Gulch, don't need to ever open up a runner again. Meaning, there's a lot to be desired in terms of the expectations of what the tool is actually going to be used for. Excuse me, you just took my car? Jeez. That's kind of a new one. I didn't expect to have it be that the car would literally just drive away with my car on top of it. I was expecting that they were both going to be sideways. And you made a fatal mistake. And I made a fatal mistake. So let's just pretend that didn't happen, okay? Yeah, let's just do that. So at this point, I have to ask the question, which character do you think would actually handle the most ridiculous challenge runs you could put together? Could you beat the entire game without using special weapons, without using anything above a gray rarity? Could you beat the game using nothing but shields? I think it's actually possible, which is the most terrifying part of this whole statement that I have to make. But yeah, I think it would be fairly reasonable. Overall, I think that, generally speaking, anything is truly possible. I think that this run, although it might seem kind of, not quite what a lot of people would be expecting, is still reasonable and possible to beat with virtually anything you could throw at it. It's meant to be more. It's meant to be played in whatever way that you want. And so, I talk a lot about accessibility in gaming and how certain things work better depending on perspectives. An individual who might not have the best of reaction time might not want to play a platformer. An individual who struggles to read fine print might not like this game's user interface. And that's a fair statement. It does make it somewhat inaccessible, but not unplayable. Borderlands' entire system of allowing the player to level up and effectively make the game easier over time allows for the game to be accessible in a way that no other shooter that I have ever played is. And I think this is a strength of Borderlands. Maybe not the most, world-ending or unique perspective to have, but one that does showcase a lot of what makes Borderlands 1 and its sequels stand out. Because it's not about the difficulty in this case. It's about the fact that you can actually sit down and play the game start to finish without really having to worry about the repercussions. Is this going to be a reasonable solution? Just do it. Find out. I know at one point my older brother and I have been talking about doing challenge runs of Borderlands and how that might look. And he mentioned, oh, I beat the game using only gold weapons. That's not a problem at all. And I thought, wow, that's impressive. How did you do that? Because I can't get a gold weapon before the dull headlamp. And he's, oh yeah, I got the keys and whatnot from to open up this specialty chest. I'm like, no, that's not a thing. Like, yes, that's a thing, but it's not something that I think would make that... It makes the run possible, but in my opinion, also kind of breaks the entire point of the run in and of itself. Anywho, Baron Flint here is going to be our helper. He's letting us into his humble abode. We have a couple things that we're doing in here at the moment. Number one, we're going to clear out a couple of his foot soldiers. And then we're going to turn around and also help the last claptrap of today. And reality is, most of this is pretty reasonable. The claptrap is just a 2-second run, and we're done. So, really, any side quests that remain, which I'm going to let you know is exactly, I suppose, 2 at the moment, because there is the claptrap in the Crimson Fastness that I forgot about. But beyond that, there's 1 in the Crimson Fastness, and there is 1 more side quest in the form of a scavenger hunt around Thor here. Anyways, I'm going to shut her down for today. But if you like what you see, want to see the end game, just drop a like, leave subscribe, and we'll catch you next week. Until then, have a good one.